For the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, and tonight the board will consider the selection of officers for the 2017 calendar year, and will also consider those resolutions that specify employees charged with performing certain functions and others that include the designation of the official newspaper and certain financial arrangements. We will begin with the nomination for the office of president. I now open the floor for a nomination and second for the office of president.
Madam Clerk, I would like to nominate Van Henry White.
And is there a second? Is there a second to the nomination for Van Henry?
Second, I'll second. You don't need a second.
Yeah, you don't need a second.
But I'll second the
I
nomination.
appreciate that.
Thank you. And are there any other nominations for the office of president?
Motion to close nomination.
Is there a second?
Second.
And I will now take a roll call vote for the nomination of Commissioner White for the office of president for the 2017 calendar year, beginning with Commissioner Adams.
Yes.
Commissioner Cruz.
Yes.
Commissioner Elliott.
Yes.
Commissioner Evans.
Yes.
Commissioner Powell.
Yes.
Commissioner White.
Yes.
I have recorded a vote of 6-0 with Commissioner Hallmark absent, selecting Commissioner White as the president for the 2017 calendar year. And Commissioner White, please come forward to be sworn in as president.
Do you need that?
Yeah, I need this. Madam Clerk, I've asked Sapphire Williams. She's here. Okay. Sapphire, I asked for my colleague, Sapphire is going to say a few words. She's going to tell you who she is.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Sapphire Williams. Currently, I work for Rochester Regional Health, but prior to about a week ago, I was in AmeriCorps, and a little bit prior to that, I was involved in a trial, well, not a trial, but a case, after being arrested at a Black Lives Matter protest, where Mr. Van White represented me. So I'd like to say a few words today. Is that okay right now? To tell you a little bit about that experience and the wonderful service that Van White provided for me in order to be here today. I'd like to begin by expressing how humbly grateful I am to be here, let alone have the honor of swearing Mr. Van White into another term as the president of the Board of Education. I met Mr. White this past summer at PBR radio station. We both had been invited to be a part of a panel to discuss Black Lives Matter and other prevalent issues concerning social justice. This was about 2 weeks after I had been arrested at a Black Lives Matter protest, as I mentioned, in downtown Rochester. While being interviewed by a local news station, I was rushed off guard by several officers in combat gear. I was whisked off to jail in a paddy wagon. I was booked, I had my mugshot taken, and I spent the night in jail. I was treated like a criminal while acting well within my rights, in front of hundreds of people, in addition to the video of my arrest going viral within a matter of days. I had never felt more humiliated, confused, or hopeless. This was my first encounter with the law, and it reaffirmed the pervasive violation of civil rights enabled by our current justice system I had only witnessed from afar. Mr. White single-handedly restored my disheartened faith in our legal system here in America. After a rather heated exchange on PBR, Mr. White casually offered to represent me pro bono. I couldn't believe my ears. the president of the school board and renowned civil rights attorney, had selflessly extended himself and his services to me, fitting me into his hectic schedule free of charge. And true to his word, Mr. White showed up to represent me a few weeks later. He presented me with options to either accept an adjournment in contemplation of dismissal, or better known as an ACD, which was something like a 6-month probation. If I did not face any other charges in the following 6 months, the charges would have been dismissed. Although it would have meant much less work for Mr. White, he did not discourage me from rejecting, he did not discourage me from rejecting the ACD that many of the other 70 protesters had accepted. Instead, Mr. White explained the risks I was taking with potentially going to trial, while all the while reminding me of my rights and liberties as a U.S. citizen and active member of the Rochester community. Mr. White's reassuring resilience, active determination, and courage to stand for justice inspired me throughout the entire ordeal and ultimately led to a speedy dismissal of all charges. His impassioned commitment is the reason I stand before you today as an example and not a statistic. It is without further ado, I'd like to read the oath which deems the incredible Van Henry White the re-elected president of our Board of Education.
This is my wife, Rock. This is Bridget, for those of you who don't know her. All right, so I guess you do this and I do this. Yeah.
All right, so I just, all right. I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
or affirm
or affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office of President
of the Office of President,
of the Board of Education
Board of Education,
for Rochester City School
for
District,
the Rochester City School District,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my abilities. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I will now open the floor for nominations and seconds for the office of Vice President.
Madam Clerk, I nominate Commissioner Cynthia Elliott for VP.
Second that nomination.
And are there any other nominations for the office of Vice President?
Motion to close nominations, Madam Clerk.
Is there a second?
Second.
And I will now take a roll call vote for the nomination of Commissioner Elliott for the office of Vice President for the 2017 calendar year, beginning with Commissioner Adams.
Yes.
Commissioner Cruz.
Yes.
Commissioner Elliott.
Yes.
Commissioner Evans.
Yes.
Commissioner Powell.
Yes.
And Commissioner White.
Yes.
I have recorded a vote of 6-0 with Commissioner Hallmark absent, selecting Commissioner Elliott as the Vice President for the 2017 calendar year. Commissioner Elliott, please come forward to be sworn in as Vice President of the Board.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Pam Jackson to come up, and some of you were listening to me preach over at Baber in November, and you heard me talk about stay in position. This is the person who told me stay in position. So I wanted her to do me the honor by swearing me in.
I thank you, Cynthia, and I am truly, truly honored to do this. One thing about Cynthia, our children are her first interest and our first love. And she works very hard. Phone rings off the hook, but whoever calls, she answers. And whatever she can do, she does. So it is a great honor to stand before you to swear her into office. I do solemnly swear
Cynthia?
I do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution, the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of Vice President
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of Vice President
of the Board of Education for the Rochester City School District,
of the Board of Education for the Rochester City School District
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my abilities.
Thank you. I now tender the chair to the incoming president for the 2017 calendar year, President White, for the consideration of resolutions.
Thank you. Before I do that, I want to take an opportunity to say a few things, and I think perhaps Vice President Elliott would like the same opportunity, and then we'll get to the agenda, which I know will move very quickly. I do want to thank the leadership of Central Office. A number of you are here today. We have some new faces. Thanks to our superintendent, Dr. Barbara Dean Williams. Your diligence, your commitment to the children and families of this community goes well beyond these late hours that you keep with us here. And I want you to know, I personally, and I know I speak on behalf of the Board of Education, when I extend my thanks and appreciation, not only for the long nights, but for the care and commitment that you have for our children. Of course, there are a lot of people that aren't in this room. Maybe some are watching, maybe some are at home having dinner, which is where we hope to be. Those staff members in the buildings and in this building, we want to say thank you to them as well. The board really appreciates the fact that none of this works by us sitting up here on this dais. It works by your commitment. So if you're watching, if you happen to be listening, really, you have our thanks and our appreciation. I also want to thank the families of the Rochester City School District. It's tough. We know that as a Board of Education, having your children struggle sometimes in our schools. And that's why we all, from central office to all our buildings, do what we do. We just pray for your indulgence and your patience. But we are all here in this building and beyond because we care about your children. But for now, we want to tell you thank you for the confidence that you have bestowed in us. And we promise to make good on that, and of course, I do personally as well. Most importantly, I shouldn't say most importantly, I should say thank you to my colleagues, because there is somebody more important than the Board of Ed. I want to say thank you to my colleagues. I think this is the third year that I've been elected president. I consider that an honor, and I know the struggles that go with that job. I know my colleague, Commissioner Evans, knows the struggles that go along with that. None of us, myself, predecessors, take that struggle, that responsibility lightly. And I wanted to share with you in a few moments after I give out one more set of thanks about how I think we're going to conduct ourselves as leaders this year. The last set of thanks, and the most important set of thanks I need to give to my family, my wife, Bridget, who is here today, and has been here at a number of occasions, my 3 children, my mother, who's probably watching via the internet, and everybody who considers themselves family, and there's so many people in this community who I do consider family. Thank you for your support, and it doesn't miss anybody's observation that this last few months have been a little challenging. As my colleagues all know, when people attack or decide to make you the focal point of their comments or concerns, you not only have to take that on, but your family members take that on because they love you and they care for you. So to those folks out there who aren't aware of what sacrifices family members make, hear my words and hear them very clearly. We thank our families, we love our families, and we really appreciate our families. So Bridget, since you're the only one here today, accept all of that on behalf of myself personally. And I know, I can say this with a great degree of confidence, my colleagues share the same sentiments about their families, because it couldn't happen without your support and guidance. And so, very briefly, I try to, when I can, lay out some kind of framework. I'm not going to take a lot of time tonight. To be quite honest, I thought there were going to be other people here, and I thought to myself, well, listen, strategically, I was thinking like a lawyer. The best way to deal with this is say very little, because if I talk a lot, these people who intended on coming tonight are probably going to play off from that. So I didn't prepare any remarks. I did ask, and it's no secret, I did ask Sapphire to come here because I thought someone was going to talk about my role as a lawyer in this community. And I wanted you all to know, I wasn't trying to, boast myself up. I wanted you to know what kind of lawyer I am. And no matter what a certain minority of folks say, you cannot describe a person by one case or by one client. We're all very multifaceted, and I know you all appreciate that. And I want to thank Sapphire for sharing with you all just one very small aspect of my practice. But I operate my practice the same way I hope we operate this year. All right. And here's the thing. I know we tell our students to get A's and B's. This year, I want us to get some C's. And these are not easy C's. I want us to be courageous, collaborative, and creative. It's very easy. I was talking to someone at lunch today. Very easy to say, we got a great superintendent, we got great staff. Let's just let them fix the things around the edges, the fundamental things that are broken. I would say to my colleagues, and I would say to this community, this is not the time to retrench into mediocrity or just stability. This is the time to be bold and brave. This is the time to be collaborative. This is the time to be creative. This is the time to be courageous. John Kennedy once said, I'm sure a book that many of you have read, the true democracy, living and growing, inspiring, puts its faith in the people, faith that the people will not simply elect men who will represent their views ably and faithfully, but will else elect men, it should say, and women, who will exercise their conscious judgment, faith that the people will not condemn those whose devotion to principle leads them to unpopular courses, but will reward courage, respect honor, and ultimately recognize right. I say, ladies and gentlemen, this is a year that we must be courageous. I also say this is a year that we have to be creative. Maya Angelou wrote, you can't use up creativity. The more you use, the more you have. This is the time for us to be creative. I fear that when we are cautious, we don't give our community what they need. I'm not a fan of charter schools, but I give them this. They are creative. We have to be creative. Those families that we're losing because they don't have the other C word, confidence in us, they don't have the confidence in us because we are not creative. We have a lot of problems, and we have a superintendent that can fix those problems. But as a board, we have to be visionary. And finally, we absolutely positively must be collaborative. Helen Keller once wrote, alone we can do so little, together we can do so much. The hallmark of this year has to be our ability to not only reach out to parents, but other stakeholders in the community, but folks that can make us better. We, as a board, began to do that at East High School. It's not just the U of R. It's a number of agencies and folks that are out there that believe that they can make this community better. We're doing that with Geneseo. We have principals across this school district that are doing that with everyday stakeholders throughout this community. I would encourage my colleagues to understand that our success is not going to happen on the brilliance of anybody in this building, but rather will happen on the commitment and brilliance of people in the community, like, for example, Pam Jackson. For those of you who don't know Pam and don't know Sapphire, it's totally ironic. I mean, I didn't talk to Vice President Elliott about who she was going to have, and she didn't know who I was going to have. But if you all have not read this edition of City Newspaper, contained within it are Pam Jackson and Sapphire Williams. And those are the kind of people that we are going to need to collaborate with if this district is to be better. Again, I thank you, colleagues, for your patience, for my mistakes that I've made over the course of the last 2 years, and I appreciate the fact that you've vested me, notwithstanding those mistakes, with an opportunity to continue to make improvements to this district. Thank you very much. Vice President Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to thank, first of all, the colleagues who sit around this dais. We've come a long ways, and I want to, so much so that we don't have the press in here to figure out what the next story is going to be, the sensationalism that they tend to write about. And so that speaks to the fact of how well I believe that this board is working together. It doesn't mean that we all agree, because we come from different backgrounds. There is a diversity of opinion, but as we talk about those differences, out of those differences comes a kind of resolution that is rich and better because we have worked together collaboratively. So I want to thank my colleagues, each and every one of you, for giving me this opportunity to serve as your vice president, even when I take certain stands. Even when I take certain stands, because I hope you understand that the stands that I take are for the people who are coming up in succeeding generations, to ensure that what this country is supposed to stand for, that it actually lives up to its ideals. So I want to thank you. I also want to thank my friend and ride or die, Pam Jackson, and we also have Charlotte and Carlton out there. These are folk that I work with on a daily basis. If it were not for Baden Street settlement, I tell you, I would not be here today. Baden Street has a 115-year advocacy in political realms, in terms of social work, in terms of education, in terms of employment. Baden Street has always been on the front line, and so it is almost as if it is a model, because it's Baden Street that started off having some of its employees be elected to various political offices. And then we see that there are other organizations that are doing the same thing. Because we know that at Baden Street, because we do work with the same population that the Rochester City School teaches, we understand the impact that education, we understand the impact that support has in the success of the children that we serve. And my role here is to bring that kind of experience, bring that kind of work in the trenches, from the trenches, to be able to share in public policy development. We don't know what this year is going to bring with the election of Donald Trump. We don't have a clue. He talks about dismantling the Department of Education. I mean, we just don't know. And I'm glad to have a superintendent, Barbara Dean Williams, to be able to help us to move along in an uncertain time. We sort of fear that it's going to be devastating, and if it is devastating, what do? We've still got to educate these babies. And so there's got to be the kind of conversation and the fight, if we need to, in order to be able to ensure that even though the time may be rough, we could still educate 100% of our students, even if the resources are limited. Some of us know how to make a dollar hollow. So we're going to have to work differently, I think. I think we've got the right leadership in Barbara Dean Williams. I think that we are going to, as the president said, we're going to have to be courageous. But this is no time to play. You know, it really is it's no time to argue. We have to work together in unity. Could that be why we got a Donald Trump? Some people are not looking at it as being a bad thing. It may be a time for us to raise up and do the work that we need to do on behalf of our children by educating our children. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Before we move on, I do know there are a couple of new faces. Carl, I wanted to recognize you. He is our new general counsel. I want to give Carl a round of applause. Welcome, Carl. Actually, guys, I was at a breakfast this morning, and some pretty substantial leader in our community said, I know that guy. He is a prince. That's how you were described, so yeah. Prince. Beth, I don't know that you've ever been formally, were you recognized I know you're an old timer here, but you came back, and we wanted to recognize you, and the board wanted to welcome you back. Thank you. I think that's pretty much everybody. So we have some resolutions to consider. What's that? We have some resolutions to consider. Can I get a motion to consider these resolutions en masse? It's been moved by Vice President Elliott to consider resolutions, and seconded by Commissioner Adams to consider resolutions 430 through 440 as observed in your packet. All those in favor of voting on them as a bulk, say aye. Aye. Any opposition? All right. Now, can I get a resolution to discuss resolutions 430 to 440?
Move it.
Been moved by Commissioner Evans, seconded by Commissioner Powell. Any questions or comments regarding those various
Yeah,
resolutions?
Mr. President.
Yes, ma'am.
Maybe I didn't, I saw this, it came through before, but I didn't see it. Resolution 437. Can someone explain to me what it means to have a blanket bond required for officers and employees? I don't know if that's the one that Okay.
Barbara, is there anybody who can? Yeah, I saw Everton. Everton, can you, the superintendent wanted to know if you could answer that question? Or Carl? I don't-
Yeah, Resolution 437.
Yeah. Carl?
Authorizing to procure blanket bond for required officers and employees.
All right, this is your first at-bat, Carl.
Well, I have to begin by saying that I didn't particularly see or recommend this bond. I saw it on your agenda, however, and I recognize it as an instrument that is normally used to ensure our employees and board members with respect to acts that one may consider to be negligent or otherwise without authority. It's a good policy for a board to have in place, and I certainly would recommend it even without having the opportunity to have read it.
All right, thank you.
Does that answer your question, Vice
Yes, it
President?
does, Mr. President.
Any other questions or comments regarding those resolutions? There being no further questions or comments, all those in favor of resolutions 430 to 440, say aye. Aye. Any nays? The ayes have it. Okay, Madam Clerk, the next thing we have to do, you correct me if I'm wrong, is consider standing committee assignments.
We're going to announce the next meetings and adjourn.
Well, why don't you do that for me? Can you do that for me? Thanks.
January 12th.
The next meetings of the board are scheduled for January 12th. That will be a special meeting of the board called for 5:30 p.m. And following that, we have the January business meeting, which is scheduled for January 26th. And that meeting is called at 6:30 p.m.
Thank you. We got some real veterans on here. Do we adjourn this? Do we adjourn this meeting?
Yes.
And then I convene separate meetings on the committees? Okay, so can I get a motion to adjourn this meeting?
Motion to second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Evans, first and second, it sounds like. Hey, is he in a hurry or what? It's been seconded by Commissioner Adams. Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All right, good night. Now, if you're interested, we're going to stick around, and I'm going to convene, as was required by the bylaws, the separate standing committees. Since they don't have chairs right now, I have to convene the meetings, and then we elect a chair. My understanding is, just to let you all folks know, we've discussed this, and we pretty much going to keep the committee assignments that we had last year. I sent out an email to everybody, but is that pretty much agreed to? Commissioner Powell?
My only question is procedural. Do we vote on no, we don't vote on committee assignments. You're authorized to
Right.
make the recommendation. We only vote on the
Chair.
chairs of
Yeah,
each
that's right.
committee. Thank you.
Committee?
Yeah, okay, thank you. Just want to make sure.
Okay,
I'm
so
clear.
what I'm going to do is I'm going to convene a meeting of the Board Governance and Development Committee. That committee will be staffed by Commissioner Hallmark, Commissioner Cruz, and Commissioner Powell.
Motion that we take Elizabeth Hallmark as our chair for the Board of Governance.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. All right. Those are just, by the way, the committee members voting, all right? Do you want to adjourn that meeting? All right. She's doing that on behalf of Commissioner Hallmark. So all those in favor of adjourning the meeting, say aye. Aye. All right. So that meeting has been adjourned. I'm next, as president of the board, going to convene a meeting of the Community and Intergovernmental Relations Committee. That committee will consist of Vice President Elliott, Mary Adams, and Elizabeth Hallmark. Can I get a motion to elect a chair for that committee?
So moved. I'd like to nominate Vice President Elliott to chair that committee.
It's been seconded.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that Vice President Elliott chair the Community and Intergovernmental Relations Committee. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All right. Vice President Elliott, do you want to adjourn that meeting?
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. That meeting has been adjourned. Next, I'm going to convene a meeting of the Finance Committee. That would include Jose Cruz, Malik Evans, and Willa Powell. Can I get a motion to elect a chair for that committee?
Make a motion to nominate Jose Cruz as chair of the Finance Committee.
It's It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of Commissioner Cruz serving as Chair of the Finance Committee, say aye.
Aye.
Motion to adjourn the finance committee.
Commissioner Cruz, I think that is the quickest meeting you have ever had. That's pretty good. That's pretty close. It's been moved and seconded. That meeting is adjourned. Next, as President of the Board, we're going to convene a meeting of the Policy Development and Review Committee. That committee will consist of Willa Powell, Mary Adams, and Jose Cruz. Can I get a motion to elect a chair for that committee?
Motion to nominate Willa Powell.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of Commissioner Powell serving as Chair of Policy Development and Review, say aye.
Aye.
All right, Commissioner Powell.
Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you. Adjourned.
All right, just two more, folks. Excellence in Student Achievement Committee. I'm going to convene that meeting, and that meeting in attendance will be Commissioner Evans, Vice President Elliott, and Commissioner Hallmark. Can I get a motion to elect a chair for that committee?
Yes, Mr. President, I elect Commissioner Malik Evans as Chair of the Excellent Student Achievement Committee.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Motion to adjourn the ESA committee.
All right, that meeting is adjourned. And one more, last but certainly not least, the Audit Committee. I'm going to convene that meeting, and participating in that meeting will be Mary Adams, Cynthia, Vice President Elliott, and Malik Evans.
Make a motion to nominate Mary Adams as Chair of the Audit Committee.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded for Mary Adams to serve as Chair of Audit. All those in favor say aye.
Motion to
Gavel is
adjourn
yours.
that meeting.
All right. All right, Madam Clerk, I think we did that. Is there anything other business we have to take care of? I think we are done then, because we adjourned our last meeting. You folks have a nice evening, and enjoy this, because this will be the earliest board meeting you'll ever get out of. Good night.
I know.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, good night.